Alright guys, so this is our wrap-up video on the CSS box model here. Chapter 4 is what I want you guys to read through for your assignment this week, and I will quiz you on most of Chapter 4, and I'll tell you which parts right now. Chapter 4, he breaks apart all the different types of box models. He's broken up into 6 different types. We're going to go through a few of them here. Of course, we've already talked about a few of them in previous videos. So here he talks about display. So this is a property called display that you can use in CSS. And up at the top he has what it looks like in his browser window, the way he's broken apart this code. And then he has a whole lot of code down below it. Right? So here's his different types of boxes. He's got various types here. He's got list items and M's and paragraphs and list items and all kinds of stuff. And down here is the code for it. And below that's the CSS. So here what he's done is he's taken these first 4 here, and the paragraph, the ordered list, the list item, and the table, and he's made them display as inline elements. Okay, and by default those are not inline elements; they are block level elements. So if you see here, he's got the 3 paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, and they're written here in the code next to each other. If you were to try this on your own at home without any of the CSS, they would stack on top of each other, right? Because they're block level elements, they would take up the horizontal room on the screen. But here, because he's changed their fundamental display, they display as inline elements, so they're next to each other. Okay. So, all right. So next he's got. Let's see what he's got down here. He's got his ordered lists and list items and tables also displaying as inline. Okay. These 4 guys right here. And the other thing he's done here is that he's grouped these. We haven't talked about this. He's grouped these. It's called grouping. It's basically each element separated by a comma, and you would do that if they share similar properties and values, and we haven't done that yet, but I'll do that as we move forward in the CSS. Okay, so just know that that's why he's written them like that, so in case you're confused about that. So next he's got his ordered list right around his list items, and again list items would be stacked on top of each other, but again they're next to each other because they've been changed to inline elements. Okay. And next he has this table with, it looks like 1, 2 rows here, and then TD for table data as the different table data cells. And again, this is displaying like an inline element. It's not below any of the other elements around it or above, right? Next he has this strong element. The strong element is what makes words bold, and if you remember, that would be an inline element. So he's changed it to be an inline dash block, which is the one we haven't talked about yet. What this allows them to do is allows them to give this a width. Okay, so here we go. Here's the strong element, and in the code here, here's where he has it wrapped. Okay, and he has some text here, and it's displaying like a block element would, right, with the width, and it's stacking the words on top of each other, which a regular inline element would not do, right? They would be next to each other. They would never do that. But because he has some space to work with, and it's displaying, it's working like a block element, even though it's an inline element, it now allows it to do this, right? The other thing here is he has the code tags, which you guys have probably never seen before. It just basically changes the font to like a monospaced coding font. So that's what he's showing here. So that's what code does. Okay. It tells the HTML that it's code you're showing and not to interpret it as code you're actually adding into the page. Okay, so there's his inline block element. It's still in the same line as these guys. It doesn't move to its own space, doesn't take up the whole horizontal row, but you can give it a width. Alright, next he has the M, which again would normally be an inline element, but he's displaying it like a block element, so it's going to take up the entire horizontal space it has available. Okay. And he's got 2 of them here for examples. Okay, so there's the second one. And they're working like block level elements. Next he has a DFN, the definition, and he's changed it to a list item. Okay. And he's also given it a list dash style dash type, which is a property we haven't talked about yet. But this allows you to change what the bullet points look like. So by default they're circles, right? Or I think discs is what they use. In CSS, and he's changed it to square. We could also, I might have time to show you how you can make that a custom image. So here's the square, right? And it's a list item. They're displaying like list items. but they're not wrapped in LIs. Okay, so again, he's changing the fundamental way they're displaying. Lastly, he has this image. He has it set to display none. Okay, so here's his image, and it looks like it would have been a picture of a star, right? And he just added some text here to say display none, because it's not going to appear because he's not displaying it at all. And you might ask yourself, well, why would I not want to display something? It might be useful if you're doing something in JavaScript where you want something to appear later, or if you click on something and then it appears, kind of thing. That's why you would display it as none. And then finally, he's got a class he created, so the .ul means class. It's not the element ul, because it's got that dot before it, so let's go find it. There it is, class equals ul. Okay, so this is not the element ul. He just happened to name it ul, which is kind of confusing. But he attached it here, and he's given it some padding on the left-hand side. And what it did is it allowed these squares to have some room here. If not, they would stick out beyond the other content, right? So that's what he did there. So the next page, he just breaks it down for you, right? Here's the different types of displays. We've talked about most of these at this point, and we just talked about some just now. And this is a page you're definitely going to want to read. This is part of your assignment, of course. So read through that, and that is basically all you need to know about display. Hopefully all this starts to make some sense now, so let's go on. Alright, so now I'm on the next page here, the box model. And basically this is a visual representation of what we did in a previous video, right? So here's your inner box, which in many cases is going to be your content or an image or whatever it is that you're trying to style. Around that is your padding, which you can set differently to all four sides. In this case, they're all the same, right? And then after your padding is your border. In this case, this is a huge border, but he's got borders on all four sides. Then comes your margin, which is outside the border, right? It's the space that breaks apart the different elements from each other. And it could be set to 0 if you'd like, if things need to be next to each other for layout purposes. And then what he has called here is an outer box, which is basically where the margin ends. Okay, so that's the box model in a nutshell. And you can read through his code here. Basically, he created a class called .box, and here's all the settings for it. What I do want to show you here is he has his borders separated out. Remember I showed you shorthand for padding and margins, and then I just did a shorthand for border in the last video. Here he has them written out for top, bottom, left, and right, and the reason being obviously that he wanted 2 that were gray and 2 that were black, so they don't all match, so he couldn't just wrap them all up into one shorthand. And in this case, it doesn't work like padding and margins, where he would have a shorthand for bottom right, left and top, or bottom and top, left and right. So he couldn't combine those. So next page here, page 81, he just talks about all the individual properties and what they do. And we've discussed these now at some length, so hopefully these make sense. We haven't really mentioned overflow or visibility yet, so you can read it what it says here. Basically, overflow, if the content within your inner box is larger than the size you've given it, the content inside will just overflow, right? So your content, any text will just keep going outside this box if it needed to. You could change those settings to hide any overflow text, so it would still stay within the box, but everything else would disappear. Or there's an auto function where it creates a scroll bar, and you can still scroll through any content that's bigger than the box that you need for, which can be kind of handy. And maybe I'll show you a case for that here in one of the later videos here. So there's just your general box model. All right, we know that. Next is the inline box, which we did do a couple of examples of. We used the emphasis, and the span, I believe, in the previous video, or at least the span for sure, which is an inline box. Here he has his example of an inline box. Here's the CSS for it. Basically, he's got 2 things going on here. He's got a class called box, right here, which he set to display as inline, but it's already an inline, so technically he didn't need that. Visibility set to visible. Alright, so you can make that visible or hidden. Again, a reason you might want to do that is if you're going to make things appear and reappear later, maybe using JavaScript. Right, so that's why that's there. You don't technically need it. Right, and then he's got his line heights, his margins, and his padding. Alright, so that's all stuff we should understand. And here it's written shorthand, so his margins and his padding are shorthanded there. Alright, and what he's showing you here is that because this is an inline element and it's run out of space and it's moved on to the next line, that it's still keeping those same properties, right? Whereas a regular block element box wouldn't do this, right? It would just move the entire thing down to the next line if it didn't have space to complete on that line. Okay, so this is what an inline box would do. Sorry, let my mouse catch up here. And basically all the same properties and values apply to an inline box, except it can't take width, height, or overflow. Okay, so the next section here, he's going to show us how to fix that by using the inline dash block. Okay, but read through this and hopefully this makes sense. Alright, so here we're at the inline dash block box, still in chapter 4 here, page 84. This he's shown us an example of in the display area, right? But he's broken it apart here from the rest of the code. And what he has here is an image with a class named replaced box, dash box. Again, a class doesn't only apply to spans or divs. You can apply it to any element, as with IDs, you can apply them to any element. In this case, it's this image element that has this class of replace dash box. Okay, so let's go see what this looks like. It's actually this one here at the top. So here's replace dash box, and he has some width and some height and some overflow settings, so all the different settings that are available to him. And he's changed it to display inline dash block, so it's going to take a combination of both of the features of the inline and the block type elements, right? That's why he has it here in bold. That's the main thing he's trying to show you here. So there's the padding here, left and right, top and bottom, that big padding of 120 and 10 pixels, right? And his margins are set, and he's given it a width and a height. The reason he changed it to inline dash block is so he could give it that width and that height, which you can't if it was just an inline element, right? Next he has this span, which again is an inline element. Okay, and he's applied a class to it, which is this one right here, and he's changed it again to inline dash block for the same reason, so he can give it a width and a height. Okay, and he's got some margins and some padding. In this case, though, he's got some actual content inside here, not just an image. And you'll notice that it's displaying on 2 lines, whereas if this was just a regular inline element, it wouldn't do that. Okay, so you find yourself in the need that your inline element needs to display and act like a block element. This is how you would do it. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to give my mouse here a second to catch up. And I will honestly tell you that it's rare to use this inline dash block. In fact, I haven't seen it used very often on different websites. I haven't used it. I use inline and block, and I've seen those get switched using the display property pretty often, and they do it a lot in navigation bars. But that's about as far as I've seen it. So read through the inline block box. Next, he has the actual block box, which we covered in the previous video, so you can read through that as well. And then that's as far as I want you to read. Okay, so just read up to page 87 here. Okay, in chapter 4. These other ones you can read through if you wish. I'm not going to cover them in these videos because they talk about positioning, and we haven't talked about positioning yet. So I'm going to let those go for now. But just read 87 and start on page here 78. Okay, so that's your homework assignment, is to read through those pages. I'll quiz you on that, and I'll quiz you, of course, on these videos. All right.